I'd like to talk around three issues. One, why I'm campaigning for safer streets and why gambling-related harm is a key component of my work. Two, some of the people and their testimonies. And three, the good work the government has done, but the more that needs to be done next. So in Brent, I was tired of seeing the number of betting shops on the high street. And every time there was an empty shop, another betting shop would be in its place. And this was specifically in areas like Harlesden, Wealdstone, Neasden, Wembley and Kilburn. And in Harlesden, we've got 10 betting shops within a 10-minute walk. That's absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely give way to the chair.
I'm grateful to giving way. I first of all apologise because I won't be able to stay here this debate because I have to follow up with the family that I was referencing who were in the gallery earlier on there, Ryan Cornelius. But I do say that we have taken very seriously, as she knows, at the All-Party Parliamentary Group, the lessons of Brent, and they have been named in letters now to the government. We have to stop this ridiculous proliferation of betting shops and adult gaming centres with no control by councils who don't think it's the right thing to have these things there, yet they have no say in it. That should be the number one prime thing for government is, let's end that nonsense and give councils the power to say no.
I thank the Honourable Member for his intervention, and he chairs the APPG group on gambling harms, of which I'm a member, and thank you very much for that. Brent is a solid example of why this change is needed. And there's another shop that's due to be opened. It's a double-fronted gambling shop, and it's been graffitied with and I call it conscious graffiti. It says, stop opening gambling shops in deprived areas. You know, so even those people, you know, and so I endorse that message. And in Kilburn, there's been 300 written objections to a new proposed adult gaming centre. And when I campaigned on this, Brent Council said their hands were tied, and they said I needed to give more evidence. So I collated more evidence, thousands of responses from my constituents, but that still wasn't enough because of the aim to permit legislation. And this has actually led Brent Council, I know through my campaigning and probably nagging, it's led them to run an incredible campaign, and they've now got other councils on board, and the deputy leader from Brent is here today for this debate. And so in 2025, last year, my summer campaign, I decided to travel around the country, but mainly London, to investigate high streets and what they look like. And would you believe it, in economically deprived areas, there were plenty of brightly lit gambling shops just within 2 or 3 shops away. And so you could just look down the road and you'll see all these bright lights glittering, trying to encourage people to come in and spend their money. But there was one particular high street where I couldn't find a gambling shop, and I walked up and down on both sides, and it's one of the wealthiest high streets in London, and it was in Hampstead. And actually, yeah, it's shocking. And actually, one of the residents quite happily said to me, we even campaigned to stop McDonald's opening on our high street. We didn't want them. And on Monday, I produced a letter and published this letter, open letter to the Prime Minister, and it had 280 signatures on that letter, mainly from London, but all around the country, of councillors, leaders, mayors, all saying that this aim to permit needs to change. In Brent, 17 out of 22 wards have gambling premises that outnumber supermarket stores. And the thing is, what the gambling industry was saying was that they help high streets. They don't help high streets, because what happens when we have a gambling shop set up, other shops don't want to be there, because these gambling establishments, they entice people to come in and they ply them with food and drink and teas and coffees. So there's no point in having a coffee shop open next door when they're going to get free coffees in the gambling shop. Absolutely.
Thank my honourable friend for giving way and for her visit to Kensington and Bayswater, where she herself enticed me into an adult gaming centre to show me how it's set up to keep people there, and even that a machine can be reserved and people can go away and come back because they are preying on that kind of addictive mentality. And these are not places like the slot machines or the 20p arcades on the seaside towns. They're serious money.
Absolutely. Thank my honourable friend, and I hope it wasn't a bad influence that I enticed you in. But it was the first time that I had gone into one, that actually you have to go into one to really understand just what it is like. And as you said, we went in and they had a reserve on a machine for the person that went somewhere and to come back. I mean, I think the model, this business model, is extreme and it is rather cruel. Absolutely.
I thank her for giving way. She's delivering an excellent speech, and I really support her campaign to end this aim to permit. And another issue I've heard lots of people concerned about is the 80-20 rule, where gambling shops are required to have only 20% of their machines, the higher stake, more dangerous, more addictive machines. And there is a rumour or a consultation out that this might be liberalised. Does she agree with me that the liberalisation of this rule at a time when gambling regulation is not fit for purpose would be completely unacceptable?
Thank my honourable friend, that rule must not be changed. And I tell you for why. Because how these gambling shops get around it is they have these iPads, which they are classified as the lower-end machines, so the B2, B2, they don't work. And so that's how they get away with saying, well, that's why we've got more B3 machines, which are the most addictive machines, where you can put £20 in and you can lose that in a minute. And so that's why that rule shouldn't be liberalised at all. It's the way they work around it. As I say, their business model is absolutely quite shocking. The national average for low-risk gamblers is 13.4%, and high-risk gamblers is 2.9%. In Brent, we have 17.1% low-risk gamblers and 6.2% high-risk gamblers. So that shows the link between the proliferation of gambling shops and harm. And the thing that you do find on high streets when you have lots of gambling shops is pawn shops, because people lose their money and then they pawn what they can to try and gamble some more to win it back. Now, I'm not saying ban gambling altogether, but I'm saying we have to be honest about the harm that is being caused at the moment. And the 2005 Gambling Act is completely out of date. And this campaign, this latest iteration of this campaign has been a personal journey for me, and my understanding of the gambling harms. And like my honourable friend, where we went into his gambling shops, and he's running an excellent campaign to stop a huge gambling shop opening in his constituency, I've met some amazing people. And I want to just talk about the testimonies of these amazing people that I have met. And I've interviewed 2 of them, and those interviews are on my Substack. And their testimonies opened my eyes, and I hope anyone that listens to it would open their eyes. And it also moved me to tears. Jackie Alden, she's a phenomenal campaigner, Madam Deputy Speaker. Her mum, Wendy Hughes, worked in a bookmakers where she was given free plays to play the machine so that she can entice the punters that were there. The bright lights, the sounds of the sounds of the noise and the music when they win. And she became addicted. So she started gambling with her own money. And towards the end of her life, she gambled on a slot machine for 16 hours straight. 16 hours straight. With the staff buying her food, so she didn't leave. They knew how she liked her tea and her coffee, and they kept her there because her credit card, she maxed out her credit card, so they kept her there over 12 hours so that her credit card limit would be renewed so she could take money out and start gambling again. They knew her favourite chair, they knew her favourite machine, and they let her gamble for 16 hours. She lost almost £2,000 in that session, and Mercer were fined £95,000 as a result of social responsibility failings. None of that money, I might add, went to the family. And Wendy later died of cancer, and she told her, I'm getting emotional, sorry, because Jackie's she's an amazing campaigner. So Wendy later died of cancer, and she told her daughter Jackie, but she was gambling so that she could win enough money to pay for her funeral. And the people in that gambling shop knew that she was dying of cancer because they saw her emancipated body as she was, kept going in to gamble. And there's Charles and Liz Ritchie. They lost their son, Jack Ritchie, at the tender age of 24. He had a gambling addiction, And in Jack's suicide note, he said he would never be free from gambling, and that's why he took his life. And when I spoke to Giles, he told me how Jack got addicted at school. He was placing bets with his dinner money, and him and his friends would go into these gambling shops, and okay, it has been strengthened, and there are checks now for young people that look under 18, but there wasn't then. And he was going into these gambling shops with his friends, and he spent his gambling money, he spent his dinner money, and he had 2 big wins. He won £1,000, and he was addicted because he was chasing that win time and time again. And his parents didn't find this out until after he died. And in their grief, they decided to mobilise others. And Charles and Liz have set up an amazing charity called Gambling with Lives. And there are so many people who have been fighting this, and they've been fighting this on their own. And the Labour government has done some good work. You know, there was just one NHS centre when Jack died. Now there's 15. But there's so much more that we must do. Absolutely.
Member for giving way. She's making a really powerful speech. We had some representatives of the gambling industry in front of the Treasury Committee recently, and I think what it revealed to me was that these stories that the Honourable Member are sharing with us today, they are not tragic byproducts of an industry that's otherwise okay. They're actually part of the business strategy of that industry. They receive 60% of their profits from 5% of their customers. They need people like this in the circumstance they're in order to make the profits that they survive on. And does she agree with me that it was disgrace when those representatives in front of the Treasury Committee said there is no evidence of social harm related to gambling?
Not only do I agree with you, I find it shocking that they can blatantly ignore the evidence and lie like that. And you do wonder sometimes how people sleep at night knowing the harm that is caused. And we're not saying, you know, scrap all gambling. What we're saying is we have to recognise, understand these harms, and we have to do what we can to prevent and stop these harms. And Gambling with Lives have helped influence NHS centres, but also the NICE guidelines too. And that is really vital and important to how we identify and link those harms to the increase in mental health and suicides. At the moment, we have on average 1 suicide a day due to gambling harms. And what we now need as part of the NICE guidelines, I will come to that actually a bit later, so I won't come to that now. But I've also met Rob Davis, the reporter from The Guardian, who was actually the first person to take me into an adult gaming centre and show me the ropes. But the ropes, Madam Deputy Speaker, is basically you stick your money in the machine and you press the button. There's no skill to it at all. And actually, you can even put it on autoplay, so you don't have to keep pressing the button, and it spins at 0.25 seconds, and that's why you can lose £20 very, very quickly. And then the veterans, in part of the APPG group, the veterans came and gave evidence. And this actually shocked me because I hadn't realised just how prolific gambling was from our veterans and in the army. And in the armed forces. But if we think about it, because of the business model that the gambling industry has, this is an ideal clientele for them because they have occupational stress and trauma, long deployments and separation from their support networks, cultural acceptance of gambling as a social activity, easy access to gambling opportunities. There's even addictive be-free machines in army barracks, and we don't know how many there are. We're still trying to get those numbers. So this is shocking, really, that this happens because despite the obvious risk of gambling that we're talking about, there's also an additional risk for people in the army because those people in the armed forces at an organisational level, they have an additional gambling-related harm because it can reduce operational readiness, it can leave personnel distracted, vulnerable to bribery or criminal influence, and less able to focus on their duties, increasing the risk of errors that may endanger themselves and colleagues and operational outcomes. So therefore, we have to tackle the gambling in the armed forces if we're going to make sure that they're able to do their job properly, and we also have to protect veterans. I've also spoken to Tom Fleming, Lord Foster of Bath, Harj Ghali, and Tom Goodsmith and Adam Bridshaw, who are making an important documentary on gambling harms. So, to end my speech, what is gambling harms and what can the government do about it? Gambling harms includes domestic abuse, rent arrears, mental health decline, relationship breakdown, and suicides, as we've spoken about, especially in young men. And if the government want to tackle, and the government does want to tackle violence against women and girls, they need to tackle gambling. Because when I asked the gambling industry why they needed some of their shops to be open 24/7, I was told because taxi drivers who are working nights can come in after a hard night's work and gamble away their wages, basically. And what used to happen is that gambling, is that people who lost their money and their wages used to get really angry, pick the chairs up and smash the machines. These machines cost about £40,000. So what did? They made the chairs so heavy so now you can't pick it up and smash the machines. It is absolutely shocking. Homelessness, links to gambling and homelessness, the rent money is being gambled away. I met a gambler who was thrown out of his house by his wife because he just gambled away all of their money. They couldn't even afford food. And suicide, particularly in young men. Gambling isn't like drug and alcohol where you can see it or you can smell it. It's something that can be hidden for a while until you have no money, until you're desperate. And that's why sometimes it's found really late, because it gets to that desperate point. And the Social Market Foundation notes that residents consistently associate high concentrations of gambling venues with increased antisocial behaviour, reduces feelings of safety and decline in pride in people's high street. So if we want pride in place, we do need to clear up our high streets. Gamble Aware shone a light on the scary prospect of young children being systematically groomed by the industry. Grooming young people to become desensitised to gambling, specifically through gaming. They're using the same addictive hooks to get young people addicted to these games and to gambling. It's more potent than drugs and alcohol, and also some influencers are being paid to influence young people to gambling. And the 16-year-old young boys are more vulnerable to this than any other group. And that's because there are video games like FIFA EAFC, which I've never played, Madam District, because I don't know. But there's loot boxes and there's virtual currencies where people can use and pay. And it is something that we have to get a grip of. And it also means that we need to work with creators. And I have been working with Casper Lee, Joe Sugg, Amda Driscoll, Joshua Peters, Giuseppe Federici, on how we can involve and help and develop and mature current and future creators. And I would like for the Minister to also meet with this group of creators to see what we can do to help that industry. So action must be taken. And the Social Market Foundation statutory duty says that the statutory duty to aim to permit gambling premises is no longer fit for purpose. As an activity, it prevents councils from responding to evidence of harm and local opposition. It erodes the ability of local communities to shape their neighbourhoods. So this is what needs to be done. And they have 5 steps. And I'm just going to read their 5 steps, Madam Speaker, because I agree with them all. 1, greater licensing powers should be granted to local authorities, including cumulative impact assessments with no further delay. 2, public health directors should be included in the gambling licensing process as they are for alcohol. 3, current premises licence classifications should be reviewed, particularly in relation to AGCs operating under bingo licences. Bingo licences is another way how these AGCs get away with saying that they're a bingo hall where there's no live bingo played at all. It's mainly B3 machines, which make, by the way, Madam Deputy Speaker, on average is £30,000 a year. So that is money coming directly from the poor to the gambling industry. 4, the cap on annual licence fees payable by premises to local authorities should be increased. At the moment it's just £1,000, should be increased to at least £2,000, and the amount of fees should be reviewed. 5, the balance of responsibilities between local authorities and the gambling commissions on enforcement and inspection of regulations should be clarified, because that is very opaque at the moment. And 6 is the aim to permit room. Basically, we need to get rid. And in addition to those, Madam Deputy Speaker, nice guidelines recommendations from the healthcare professionals are saying that when people go to their GP for appointments, when they ask if they've got an alcohol or drug addiction, they should also be asked if they've got a gambling addiction. And that way we'll be able to identify the link between gambling, mental health breakdown and suicide. And gambling harm, Madam Deputy Speaker, harms all of us. For every person who's addicted to gambling, 6 or 7 people is also affected, and that's their family members, close friends, even work colleagues. So if we want safer streets, safer homes, safer minds, it will all be dramatically improved if we tackle the gambling industry, the harm of gambling, and if we end aim to permit. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker.